The champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched him walk through the first-class cabin door of Flight 447 to Miami. Alexander Sidorov. I'd know that face anywhere. It had been burned into my memory 3 years ago when my brother Danny showed me a photograph and whispered, "Stay away from this man, Sal. He's death in an Armani suit." Danny was a beat cop in Brooklyn back then, before the accident that wasn't an accident. Before I learned that some debts in this world get paid in blood, not money. Now here he was, 6'3" of calculated danger, moving down the aisle with the casual confidence of a man who owned everything he touched. His dark hair was swept back perfectly. His jaw carved like it had been designed to break hearts and bones in equal measure. The other passengers didn't know they were breathing the same air as the Pakhon of the Sidorov Bratva, the Russian crime family that had controlled Manhattan's Diamond District and half of Brighton Beach for 2 decades. They didn't know that the man settling into seat 2A had allegedly ordered 17 executions in the past year alone. They saw a businessman. I saw a ghost from my worst nightmares. My coworker Jennifer touched my elbow. "You okay? You look like you've seen a corpse." "I'm fine," I lied, forcing my lips into something resembling a smile. "Just remembered I forgot to call my mom." But I wasn't fine. Because tucked in my uniform pocket was a folded cocktail napkin with 3 words scrawled in frantic handwriting. "Bomb on board." I'd found it in the galley 30 minutes ago, placed carefully on the coffee maker where only crew would see it. No signature. No explanation. Just those 3 words that had turned my blood to ice water. Before we dive deeper into this story, I want to take a moment to say hello to our incredible global family watching right now. Your support means the world to us and we're grateful you tune in every day. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We absolutely love hearing from you all around the world. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because tomorrow we're dropping another story you absolutely cannot miss. Trust me, you'll want to be notified. Now, back to the moment that changed everything. Had 2 choices. I could alert the captain cause a massive delay, evacuate 300 passengers, and potentially watch this plane get torn apart by bomb squad dogs only to find nothing, destroying my career over what might be a sick prank. Or I could stay silent, let us take off, and pray that napkin was just some passenger's twisted idea of fun. But there was a third option crystallizing in my mind, dangerous and insane. I could warn him. Alexander Sidorov. Because if there really was a bomb on this plane and if it was meant for him, which my gut screamed was true, then maybe, just maybe, the man who'd survived 6 assassination attempts could do something about it. My hands moved before my brain could stop them. I grabbed another napkin, pulled out my pen, and wrote 4 words in capital letters. "Don't board this plane." Then I folded it carefully, smoothed down my navy blue vest, and walked toward first class like I was heading to my own execution. He was reading the Wall Street Journal when I approached. His profile sharp enough to cut glass. Up close, he was even more devastating. Those ice blue eyes that I'd heard could freeze a man's confession in his throat, the thin white scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the way his hands rested calmly on the armrests like a king on his throne. He looked up as I stopped beside his seat, and for a moment, the entire world seemed to narrow down to just the 2 of us. "Mr. Sidorov," I said quietly, using his real name, the one that never appeared on any passenger manifest, the one he thought nobody in this commercial cattle car would know. His eyes flickered with something dangerous. Recognition of the breach. "Your champagne, sir." I placed the glass on his tray table, the napkin folded beneath it. His gaze dropped to it, then rose slowly back to my face. 4-3 heartbeats, neither of us moved. Then his fingers. I noticed they bore no wedding ring, just a thick platinum signet engraved with a 2-headed eagle, slid the napkin free and unfolded it below the sightline of the other passengers. I watched his jaw tighten imperceptibly. Those Arctic eyes met mine again, and I saw something flicker behind them. Calculation, assessment, and something else I couldn't name. "Your name?" he asked in a voice like gravel wrapped in velvet, barely above a whisper. "Sally," I breathed. "Sally Harrell. Sally Harrell." He repeated it like he was memorizing it, filing it away in whatever mental database held the names of everyone who'd ever helped or crossed him. You wrote this. I'm trying to save your life, Mr. Sidorov. Why? One word. Loaded with 20 years of paranoia. Because whatever you've done, these 300 innocent people don't deserve to pay for it. My voice was steadier than I felt. There's a note in the galley. 3 words, bomb on board. I don't know if it's real, but it's real. He said it with absolute certainty, and my stomach dropped through the floor. Who else knows? No one. I found it 2 minutes before you boarded. His eyes bored into mine, searching for deception. In the Bratva, trust was a currency more valuable than heroin, and I could see him weighing whether to spend it on a flight attendant he'd never met. Show me. I glanced toward the cockpit, toward Jennifer preparing the safety demonstration, toward the 300 lives hanging in the balance. I can't just. Show me. Not a request. A command delivered by a man who'd spent his entire adult life being obeyed without question. But beneath it I heard something else. Please. I need to know how bad this is. I made a decision that would alter the trajectory of my entire existence. Follow me in 30 seconds. Pretend you're looking for the bathroom. I turned and walked back through the cabin, my heart hammering against my ribs. The galley was empty when I arrived, and I pulled the original napkin from my pocket just as Alexander Sidorov appeared in the narrow doorway, filling it completely with his presence. Up close in the confined space, I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, cedar and smoke, and feel the heat radiating off his body. I handed him the napkin. He studied it for a long moment, his face unreadable. This handwriting. You recognize it? No. But there are 3 crew members working this flight besides me and 15 passengers who pre-boarded. The device would be in cargo, he said, almost to himself. Timed or remote detonation. They'd want to wait until we're over water, make recovery difficult. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt stripped bare under that gaze. You know who I am. Your brother was police. The question hit me like a physical blow. How did you? You said my real name. Called me Sidorov instead of whatever alias is on my ticket today. That means NYPD, FBI, or you've got family in the life. His eyes narrowed. You have that cop look. Righteous but tired. Let me guess. Brother or father in blue. And someone told you to stay far away from men like me. My brother Danny, I whispered. He died 3 years ago. Car accident in Red Hook. Something flickered across Alexander's face. Not quite sympathy. Men like him had that emotion surgically removed. But recognition. Understanding. Red Hook. 3 years ago. He was calculating, accessing memories. Danny Harrell. Patrol officer who witnessed the Constantine execution outside the Volga room. Was supposed to testify before he drove off the Gowanus Expressway in a vehicle with mysteriously failed brakes. My throat closed. He knew. This man standing inches from me knew exactly how Danny died, might have even given the order himself, and here I was trying to save his life. Why aren't you running? I asked hoarsely. If you know there's a bomb. Because running means they win, Alexander said simply. And I don't lose, Sally Harrell. Not to the Italians, not to the Chechens, not to whoever decided today was the day to send me to meet my maker. He pulled out his phone, an encrypted model I'd never seen before, and typed rapidly. I'm having my people sweep cargo. If there's a device, they'll find it. But that takes time we don't have. When's pushback? Check my watch. 12 minutes. Then we have 12 minutes to find whoever planted that warning and figure out if they're trying to save me or set me up. He stepped closer, and I pressed back against the galley counter. This is important, Sally. Did anyone watch you find that napkin? Did anyone see your reaction? I replayed the moment in my mind. No, I was alone. I put it in my pocket immediately and came straight to you. Smart. He studied me with new appreciation. You could have pressed the panic button, been a hero. Why didn't you? Because if it's real and you're the target, They'd detonate the second they saw us evacuating. They'd kill everyone just to make sure they got you. The words tumbled out. At least this way, if your people find it, we have a chance. You're right. He reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and touched my chin with his index finger, tipping my face up to meet his eyes fully. You're very right, which means you're either very smart or you've thought about scenarios like this before. Which is it? Danny used to talk about his cases, about how the Bratva thinks, how you don't make moves without 3 exits and 2 contingencies. My voice was barely a whisper. He said the most dangerous thing about your world wasn't the violence. It was the chess game. How you're all playing 12 moves ahead while everyone else is stuck on move 2. Alexander's thumb traced along my jawline, featherlight, and electricity shot down my spine. Your brother was correct. And right now, you and I are playing a game where the board is this aircraft and the stakes are 300 souls. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went granite. They found it. Cargo hold. Hidden in a registered bag for seat 27B. Plastic explosive, probably Semtex. Sophisticated trigger. Cellular detonation with pressure failsafe. Oh God! My knees went weak. Can they disarm it? They're trying. But Sally. His grip on my chin tightened slightly. The bag is registered to a Maria Castellano. That name mean anything to you? Passenger manifest. I checked in her bag myself at the gate. Middle-aged woman, Italian accent, flying to Miami to visit her daughter. The memory crystallized. She was nervous. Kept checking her watch. I thought she was just afraid of flying, but she was waiting for confirmation that I'd boarded. Alexander's voice had gone cold as a Siberian winter. The Castellanos are Boston Mafia, under the Genovese umbrella. They've wanted me dead since I expanded operations into their port territories last year. Maria is probably Tony Castellano's aunt or cousin, someone clean enough to buy a ticket without flagging our intelligence. So what do we do? I was gripping his forearm now, I realized. Holding on to this criminal like he was my lifeline. We can't take off with a bomb on board. We're not going to. He released me and stepped back. His face transforming into something harder. Dangerous. This was the man who'd built an empire on fear and blood. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to walk off this plane. When I do, they'll detonate. Probably within 60 seconds, thinking I've gotten wise to their trap. The explosion will happen at the gate, contained to the cargo hold, minimal casualties if we're lucky. If you're lucky. I grabbed his jacket. Alexander, you'll be right there. You'll die. Not if I'm fast enough. He caught my hand, his fingers wrapping around my wrist. And not if you make sure everyone else is looking the other way when I move. Can you do that, Sally? Can you cause a distraction? This was insane. This was beyond insane. I was about to become an accessory to God knew what, helping a mob boss escape an assassination attempt while potentially saving 300 lives. Danny would have arrested me. Danny would have called me a traitor to everything he'd stood for. But Danny was dead, and the living had to make impossible choices. The emergency slide, I said quickly, my mind racing. If I accidentally deploy the emergency slide over the wing, it'll cause chaos. Everyone will look. The captain will go ballistic. You'll have maybe 90 seconds before they sort it out. Alexander's eyes lit with something that might have been admiration. Or desire. Or both. Do it. 30 seconds after I deplane. No sooner, or they'll know something's wrong. And then what? You just disappear. Then I find Maria Castellano and everyone she's ever loved. And I remind Boston why you don't fuck with the Sidorov Bratva. He said it casually, like he was discussing dinner plans. And you, Sally Harrell, you go back to your life and forget you ever met me. I don't think that's possible, I whispered. Something shifted in his expression. Often. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. Black, embossed with only a phone number. If anyone asks about today, you saw nothing, you know nothing. But if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call that number. You'll have the protection of the Bratva for life. That's my word, and I never break my word. I don't want protection from. Yes, you do. He cut me off gently but firmly. The moment I walk off this plane, Sally, you become a loose end. The people who tried to kill me will wonder how I knew. They'll review footage. They'll see you approach me, see us talking. They'll come for you to find out what you know. He pressed the card into my palm, closing my fingers around it. So you'll take my protection, or I don't walk off this plane at all. Those are your options. I stared at the card, feeling the weight of the world compressing down to this single choice. You're blackmailing me into letting you save my life. Yes. No hesitation. No apology. 30 seconds, Sally. Time's running out. He turned to leave, but I grabbed his arm. Alexander. Our faces were inches apart now. I could see flecks of silver in those blue eyes, could feel his breath on my lips. Don't die. I don't plan to. He leaned in, and for one impossible heartbeat I thought he might kiss me. Instead, his lips brushed my ear as he whispered, "But if I do, know that you're the first person in 15 years who tried to save my life instead of taking it. That means something. You mean something." Then he was gone, striding back through first class with that same dangerous grace. I watched him say something to the flight attendant at the door, saw him step out onto the jetway, and then I moved toward the overwing exit, my hands shaking as I reached for the emergency handle. Jennifer was across the cabin, demonstrating oxygen masks. The passengers were distracted, bored, checking phones one last time before takeoff. I pulled the handle. The emergency slide deployed with a violent whoosh that seemed to shake the entire aircraft. Alarms shrieked. Passengers screamed. Jennifer whirled around, her face a mask of horror. "Sally, what the hell?" And then the world exploded. The blast came from below, from the cargo hold, exactly as Alexander had predicted. The plane lurched sickeningly to the left. People were thrown from their seats. The lights flickered and died. Smoke began pouring through the ventilation system. In the chaos, I could hear the captain on the intercom, could hear Jennifer screaming for everyone to evacuate, could hear the sound of 300 people discovering what terror really felt like. But I was moving on autopilot, doing what I'd been trained to do. This way. Emergency exits. Leave everything. My voice was hoarse from shouting. I grabbed passengers, pushed them toward the slides, helped an elderly man who'd fallen. The smoke was getting thicker. My eyes were streaming. Behind me, I could hear the ominous creak of metal stressed beyond its limits. I was the last one off. I tumbled down the slide and landed hard on the tarmac, my ankle twisting beneath me. Fire trucks were already arriving, sirens wailing. Airport police were setting up a perimeter. Passengers were sobbing, hugging each other, taking shaky videos on their phones. And there, standing at the edge of the controlled chaos, partially hidden behind an emergency vehicle, was Alexander Sidorov. He was watching me. Just watching, with an expression I couldn't read at this distance. Then he nodded once, a tiny acknowledgement that passed between us like a secret, and turned away, disappearing into the crowd of first responders and terrified travelers. He'd made it. We'd both made it. But as I sat there on the cold ground, paramedics rushing toward me, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. Because I'd seen behind the curtain of Alexander Sidorov's world, and more terrifying than that, he'd seen me too. Really seen me. And in the Bratva, being seen was the most dangerous thing that could happen to someone like me. The next 2 weeks were a blur of FBI interviews, airline investigations, and media circus. The official story was that an unknown terrorist had attempted to bomb Flight 447, that quick thinking by the crew had saved lives, that I was a hero. They gave me a medal. The airline gave me paid leave. The FBI gave me a phone number to call if I remembered anything else. Everyone gave me something except the truth. Because the truth was that Maria Castellano had disappeared. Simply vanished into thin air somewhere between the gate and the explosion. The truth was that 3 days after the incident, 2 men in expensive suits appeared at my apartment building, knocked on my elderly neighbor Mrs. Chen's door by mistake, and left her with a month's worth of groceries and a gentle suggestion that she keep an eye on the nice flight attendant in 4B. The truth was that someone was having my mail screened, my phone protected, my credit report monitored. And I knew exactly who. I carried Alexander's card in my wallet, behind my license where I could feel its slight bulk every time I pulled out my ID. I never called the number. What would I even say? Thank you for making me complicit in your mob war. Thanks for putting a target on my back. But at night, alone in my apartment, I'd pull out the card and trace the embossed numbers with my fingertip, and I'd wonder if he thought about those minutes in the galley. Wonder if he'd kept his promise to make Boston bleed. Wonder if somewhere in his fortress in Brighton Beach, he ever looked at whatever intelligence file he'd undoubtedly built on me and felt the same impossible pull I felt when I remembered his thumb on my jaw, his lips at my ear. I went back to work after 3 weeks. Back to the routine of safety demonstrations and beverage service, of smiling at passengers and pretending my life hadn't been irrevocably altered at 30,000 feet. Jennifer had quit the trauma too much. They'd replaced her with a chatty 23-year-old from Ohio who didn't know about bomb blasts or Russian mob bosses, who still believed the skies were safe. I was working a red-eye to Chicago, 2 months after the incident, when I saw him again. He boarded last, first-class ticket, different name on the manifest. But that face, I'd have known it in a crowd of thousands. He'd let his hair grow slightly longer, and there was a new hardness around his eyes, but it was him, Alexander Sidorov, walking onto my plane like fate had a sick sense of humor. Our eyes met as he passed the galley. He paused for a fraction of a second, and I saw it all flash across his face. Recognition, surprise, something that looked almost like longing. Then his mask slammed back down, and he was just another passenger finding his seat. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. What was he doing here? Was this a coincidence? Did the Bratva even believe in coincidences? I made it through the safety demonstration on autopilot. Made it through takeoff with my hands clenched so tight around the jump seat harness that my knuckles turned white. And then, when we hit cruising altitude and the cabin lights dimmed for the overnight flight, I did what I'd sworn I'd never do. I walked to his seat. He was awake, staring out the window at the darkness beyond. As I approached, he turned his head slowly, and I saw that same intensity that had pinned me in place 2 months ago. Sally! Mr. Sidorov. I kept my voice level, professional. Can I get you anything? A drink? A blanket? An explanation for why you're on my plane? The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Sit. I'm working. Sit. Gentler this time. Please. I glanced around. The other first-class passengers were asleep or plugged into their entertainment. The cabin was dark, private. I slid into the empty seat beside him, my heart hammering. Up close, I could see new lines around his eyes. Press. You look tired, I whispered. Boston fought back, he said simply. It got messy. 23 dead in 2 months. Finally reached an agreement last week. They stay out of our ports, we stay out of their unions. Blood for blood, territory for territory. The old ways. 23 people. Because Maria Castellano had put a bomb on a plane. Because I'd warned the target. Because in this world action and reaction were tied together with barbed wire. Why are you telling me this? Because you're in it now, Alexander said, and there was something raw in his voice. Whether you want to be or not. They know you warned me, Sally. The Castellanos, they figured it out. Footage from the gate, the timing, you approaching me, they put it together. 2 weeks ago, they sent someone to your building. My blood turned to ice. Mrs. Chen is fine. My people intercepted. But Sally. He turned fully toward me now, and I saw something in his eyes I never expected to see from a man like him. Fear. Not for himself. For me. They won't stop. You humiliated them. Cost them face, money, territory in the war that followed. In their eyes, you're Bratva now. You're my responsibility, which makes you their target. So what are you saying? My voice was shaking. That I need to go into hiding. Witness protection. Give up my entire life because I tried to do the right thing. I'm saying you have 3 choices. He counted them on his fingers. 1. You take witness protection, disappear, spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. 2. You take your chances, hope they lose interest, which they won't. Or 3. He paused, and the air between us became charged with possibility. You come work for me. Officially. Under my protection, as part of my organization. You'll be untouchable. Sacred. No one in the 5 families would dare cross that line. I laughed. I couldn't help it, the sound bubbling up hysterically. You want me to join the Russian Mafia? I'm a flight attendant from Queens who volunteers at animal shelters on weekends. I'm not, I can't. You saved 300 lives, Alexander interrupted. You made a decision in 60 seconds that most people couldn't make in 60 days. You saw the play, understood the stakes, and you acted. That's not a flight attendant, Sally. That's a soldier. That's someone who belongs in this life, whether you want to admit it or not. And what would I do? The question escaped before I could stop it. Serve drinks at your mob meetings. You'd do what you do best. Read people. See what others miss. You'd be my eyes on the ground in places I can't go, situations I can't control. He leaned closer, and I could feel the heat of him. The Bratva is changing, Sally. The old ways are dying. We need people who understand both worlds, the legitimate and the criminal. People who can move between them seamlessly. People like you. People you can control, you mean. People I can trust. He reached out and took my hand, his fingers rough and warm against my palm. In my world, Sally, trust is rarer than loyalty and worth more than gold. And for some reason I can't explain and definitely don't understand, I trust you. I've trusted you since the moment you slipped me that note, knowing what it would cost you. I stared at our intertwined hands. This was insane. This was career suicide, moral bankruptcy, everything Danny had died trying to protect me from. But it was also survival. It was agency in a situation where I'd been robbed of all control. And God help me, it was exciting in a way nothing else in my safe, predictable life had ever been. I need time, I whispered. You have until we land in Chicago, Alexander said. After that, I disappear again, and you're on your own. The protection I've had on you these past months, it goes away. You become just another civilian the Bratva has no claim to. Fair game. That's not fair. That's not time, that's an ultimatum. Welcome to my world, Sally. Nothing's fair. Everything's an ultimatum. But his grip on my hand tightened. If you say yes, if you take this leap, I promise you this. I will never lie to you. I will never use you as collateral. And I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you. That's not protection. That's partnership. That's what I'm really offering. I looked into those ice blue eyes and saw past the killer, past the crime lord, to something else. Something human and hungry and hopelessly damaged. He was offering me a devil's bargain wrapped in the promise of security. He was offering me a place in a world that had already claimed me as collateral damage. He was offering me the truth about who I'd become the moment I wrote those 4 words. Don't board this plane. The plane shuddered through turbulence, and in the darkness of the cabin, I made my choice. 3 years later, I stood in the VIP section of a Brighton Beach nightclub, watching Alexander negotiate a shipping contract with a Chinese triad representative. I was wearing a black dress that cost more than my old monthly rent, and my hair was pinned up with a diamond clip that had once belonged to a Romanov princess. In my purse was a phone that could reach the head of the FBI's organized crime unit, a man who thought I was an informant for the feds. In my other purse was a phone that could reach Alexander, the man who'd become my partner, my protector, and against all logic, my lover. I lived in the gray now. The space between right and wrong, legal and criminal, salvation and damnation. I fed information both ways. Enough to keep the feds happy, never enough to truly damage the Bratva. I'd saved 17 lives in the past 3 years by alerting Alexander to FBI raids. I'd ended 12 others by making sure certain targets ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Danny would have hated what I'd become. Or maybe he would have understood. Maybe he'd been living in this same gray space when they'd killed him, trying to balance justice with survival, trying to do right in a world that only understood wrong. Alexander caught my eye across the room and smiled. That rare, genuine smile he reserved only for me. Tomorrow we were flying to Chicago again. Another deal, another dance along the razor's edge. Tomorrow I'd wake up in his penthouse overlooking the water and make him breakfast while he took calls from Moscow. Tomorrow I'd be Sally Harrell-Sideroff, though we'd never been officially married, though I still used my maiden name on paper. Tomorrow I'd continue living the impossible life I'd chosen that night at 30,000 feet. But tonight, watching him move through his kingdom with the confidence of a man who'd survived more assassination attempts than anyone could count, I realized something profound. I didn't regret my choice. Not the first one when I'd slipped him that note. Not the second when I'd agreed to join his world. Not any of the 100 choices since that had led me deeper into the darkness. Because I'd learned something Danny never got the chance to learn. Sometimes the right choice looks like the wrong one. Sometimes saving yourself means damning yourself. Sometimes the difference between hero and villain is just a matter of perspective. And the only person who can judge you is the one looking back from the mirror. The lesson isn't that crime pays, or that love conquers all, or that you should compromise your morals for protection. The lesson is simpler and harder. In this world, you make choices with incomplete information and live with the consequences. You do what you must to survive, to protect those you love, to carve out meaning in a universe that doesn't care if you live or die. And sometimes, the people society tells you are monsters are the only ones who show up when you need saving. I'd become something my old self wouldn't recognize. But I was alive. I was powerful. And I was loved by a man who'd kill for me as quickly as he'd die for me. In Alexander's world, that was the highest form of love there was. So what did you think of Sally and Alexander's impossible choice? Could you have made the same decision, or would you have chosen differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you and reading your perspectives on these complex characters and their journeys. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now because tomorrow we have another story dropping that you absolutely cannot miss. Tell us where you're watching from, whether you're in New York, London, Mumbai, or anywhere else in our incredible global family. We'll see you in the next one. Till then, stay blessed.